السلام علیکم ناظرین، آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں MM5 نیوز. میرا نام فہد ہے اور آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں پروگرام زاویہ. ناظرین، حالیہ دنوں میں برطانیہ کے اندر جو ہے الیکشنز ہوئے، اس کے ساتھ ساتھ اسکاٹ لینڈ کے اندر بھی الیکشنز ہوئے. اس کے بعد ایک نئی سکاٹش پارلیمنٹ جو ہے معرض وجود میں آئی ہے. اس کے اندر لیبر پارٹی جو ہے وہ تیسرے نمبر پہ آئی، اور جہاں پارلیمنٹ میں ہم نے دیکھا کہ مختلف ریکارڈ بریک ہوئے ہیں اور یہ کہا جا رہا ہے کہ اپنی تاریخ کی سب سے ڈائیورس جو ہے وہ سکاٹش پارلیمنٹ ہے. آج ہمارے ساتھ موجود ہیں نیولی الیکٹڈ MP پیم ڈنکن گلانسی، جنہوں نے ایک نئی تاریخ رقم کی ہے to be the first permanent wheelchair user in the parliament as an MSP. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pam. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Pam, so first of all, tell us something. When you were growing up as a kid, what was your dream? Like, what did you want to do?
So there was a few things I wanted to do. I think, like all little girls, you kind of go through various different stages of what you want to do. But I wanted, from a relatively young age, I wanted to work in psychology, actually, which is why I then went on to study psychology at Stirling University, and I got my master's in it there. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do child psychology. Once I did my degree in psychology, I decided I didn't want to do child psychology, but I'm still really interested in it, and actually pursued my master's in health psychology, looking at the way that we think about our health and what influences it, which is why when I worked in public health before I became an MSP, I was really proud to work in the NHS, but particularly in public health.
Yeah, and you mentioned in your inaugural address as well yesterday that a few weeks ago you were working full-time in the NHS, and now you find yourself as a newly elected MSP. How does that feel?
Very, very different. It's the steepest and fastest learning curve I've ever been on. And I suspect it will continue to get steeper and faster. Yeah. If you can get faster and steeper. But it's, I worked in the NHS since 2015, and I was really proud to do it. And I miss it. I have to say I do. I miss my team. I miss my colleagues. Yeah. I miss the work of the organisation. It was an incredible privilege to work for the NHS, not least because as a disabled person, I've probably used more than my fair share of the NHS in its time. So it was a good opportunity when I got the job in 2015 to be able to give something back.
And how does that feel? Obviously, party politics aside, 2021 has seen, the most diverse Scottish Parliament as yet. A lot of glass ceilings have been broken, and there's a lot of positive energy across the benches. People bigging up each other. So I guess maybe it is the honeymoon period, but it is also quite interesting. How does that feel, being part of such a diverse parliament?
I think it's a really good opportunity to be part of that. But also, I think that if we're to face the significant challenges that we have in Scotland, so 1 million people are in poverty, hundreds of thousands are still on furlough, they don't know if they're going to have a job to go back to, businesses are struggling, disabled people don't have the care that they need, the houses that are accessible, transport's inaccessible, children are living in poverty. There are a number of challenges. Of course, also the climate crisis. To meet those challenges, we need to have different people in the room. I don't think it's possible really to get the innovation if we keep putting the same people in the room. And it's time that Parliament did look a little bit more like the country it's there to represent. And I'm proud to be playing my small part in that. And it's really good because we've had a lot of support across parties for people who have come from a different background this time round, and it's really nice to see. And all of our parties have upped our game in terms of diversity. But I do also think there is a party political point there, in that I was able to get here partly because of my family, my friends, and the disabled people's movement, but also partly because in my formative years, I grew up with a Labour government. And when I got myself into politics, I joined the Labour Party, and the Labour Party supported me and elevated me and gave me the opportunity to serve.
Absolutely. And I wanted to touch on that as well. You mentioned this in your inaugural maiden speech as well. You talked about the Labour government and how it supported young people, disabled people. You talked about the Human Rights Act, the Equalities Act, the Civil Partnerships Act, and obviously not to forget devolution as well. So all these things, the Labour Party sort of was at the forefront of. And, there was a time where, Labour was, the party for Scotland, seats were all quite safe. And now we see a situation where Labour is, sitting on the third number. And obviously there's a lot of division in terms of the constitution debate. And we saw this election as well, all those debates were still at the forefront. So what is your analysis, in the 20 years that you've been part of the Labour Party? Where did things go wrong?
I think there's a number of times and points in history over the past 20 years where we can all make different decisions and take different courses of action. But there have been a lot of challenges as well that our country's faced, and it's been really difficult for people to think what is the best way forward here. And at times, we were honest during the election campaign, we didn't always give the people of Scotland and some of the people across the rest of the UK as well, the Labour Party that they deserved. And I think that's what we need to do now, and what we are saying to the country across the UK and particularly in Scotland, that we look different, we are different, and we're listening.
Interesting, yeah. And what is your personal, in terms of, roadmap? Obviously the Parliament would have a roadmap. The party would have a roadmap of what they want to achieve in the next, Parliament cycle. For Pam, what is the plan? Like, what do you want to achieve in this Parliament as an MSP?
So there's a few things I want to focus on. I want to make the lives of the people living here in Glasgow better. So that means making sure that they have jobs to go to. It means making sure that if they don't or can't work, that there's a social security system there to support them. It means that precarious and insecure work is a thing of the past. It means that they have houses that they can afford, that are accessible and that are sustainable. And it means we've got a decent public transport system across the city. So all of those things for the people of Glasgow to improve their lives is going to be a focus for me. I won't forget it was the people of Glasgow who elected me. And the other two areas that I really want to focus on is around disability, equality and human rights, and social security. So in social security, I want to create or fight for a system in Scotland that has human rights baked in from eligibility all the way through to payment, that is simple to use, easy to access, automated where possible, that guarantees a minimum income for the people of Scotland, and that also lifts people who are furthest away from economic inequality up so that they have a chance to play on a level playing field. So those are the things that I really, really want to focus on in the next 5 years.
And finally, Pam, in your journey, in your success, in your becoming an MSP, obviously a lot of people resonate with it. People with disadvantaged backgrounds, people, with disabilities or different experiences or challenges that they face in terms of having that equal playing field. So all of those people are excited to see you as an MSP, and hopefully they'll get inspired by your journey and your commitment. So what would you say to everyone that is listening right now? Like, what message will you give them to enable them to fight for their rights and for opportunities wherever they are, whatever capacity they are at, and how can they make the most out of the opportunities that are available?
For as long as I'm in Parliament, then they will be there too, because I'll bring them in that room with me. That's why I'm there. I didn't get to where I am on my own, and I won't stay there on my own. So everybody, whether you feel you've been left behind or left out in the past, whether you're a disabled person or for whatever reason you think that you don't fit in, I'm there for you, and I'm in that room for you. There are huge challenges ahead. And we're going to have to fight. And unfortunately, too many people in Scotland do have to fight just to have their basic human rights met. But that's why I'm in this. So for as long as I'm in that room, you're there too.
Great. Thank you so much, Pam, for your time. नाज़रीन, आप देख रहे थे Pam Duncan गलांसी, जो न्यूली इलेक्टेड MSP हैं स्कॉटिश पार्लियामेंट की. उनका मैसेज था एक उम्मीद का, एक होप का, और सब लोगों के लिए उनका ये पैगाम था कि अपने हकूक के लिए जो है आप स्ट्रगल करते रहें, अपनी अपॉर्चुनिटीज को आप जो है वो एक्सप्लोर करें, ताकि आप कम्युनिटी के अंदर एक बेहतर रोल प्ले कर सकें. बहुत शुक्रिया.